C. Murli Krishna Kumar is an advisor in the Planning Commission. He has completed his PhD from IIT Madras. He is having over 25 years of experience under various capacities. He joined Department of Electronics in 1985 and served in STQC Directorate. He was the project director of Project Impact for creating of industry-ready manpower in the Manpower Development Division of DIT. Presently, he is working as advisor in the Planning Commission as head of Information and Communication Technology Division and Science and Technology Division. Now, I would invite to deliver the address.
Good morning to each one of you, or rather good afternoon, just we are past noon. And I understand my position being the last speaker. I guess it's very difficult for me to hold the interest levels high, but I try to do justice to the position given, and I assure you that I have enough vitamin M stored in my slides, which will keep each one of you very enthused and stick to the presentation. The last 4 years, the country has been experiencing a great revolution, and it's become a land of opportunity. And the new mantra is public-private partnership. Whatever activity we want to do, we want to involve the private enterprise and entrepreneurs also. And it's the fourth largest economy and a safe place to do business, with liberal and transparent investment policies in place and highest returns on investment. We love to compare ourselves with China time and again, and we can see that we have done better than China in this particular year. And there is a long-term sustainable competitive advantage and high growth rate economy. All these indicators have given us ample opportunities to think big, act big, and do big things. And the magnitude of challenge which we face, as India is a very vast country, and India basically lives in rural places, and there is a challenge to provide infrastructure which can propel India and meet the objectives of the 11th plan, which is inclusive growth, most faster and broad-based inclusive growth, which we have charted for ourselves. The power generation, roads, transmission and distribution, and ports, railways, all these infrastructure-related projects are huge in nature, and there is an ample opportunity for each one of us to contribute and be part of this grand vision. Now, to achieve faster and more broad-based and inclusive growth, what is that we need to do? In my opinion, I think unless we have village plan as the focal point, as the epicenter of growth, things which we want to put in place probably will not be able to achieve a great success level. And to do this, we need to treat every village as a knowledge center. Now let us understand what are the needs of a village, and what is that we can do to address some of them, and how we can address them. Food and nutritional security, water, employment, education, health, these are all required to make the village a knowledge center. And we need to create good infrastructure and habitations so that people can live. Housing and shelter for livestock and as well as for the human beings living there is very essential. We need communications in the form of roads and access to markets and funds to do business. To realize these needs, village needs to be looked at it as a knowledge center, as I said. And the basic cardinal principles here are that social inclusion, gender equality, and reaching the unreached. One of the technologies which is now available with us, which can give us the advantage and reach the unreached, is using the information and communication technologies, which not only provides the information but also empowers every individual with the information and knowledge which is available out there, so that each one of them can participate and get their dreams fulfilled. There is a famous slide which President keeps talking about, PURA, providing urban facilities in rural areas. This is the ultimate vision, wherein you provide the physical connectivity, and then the second layer would be the electronic connectivity, third one would be economic connectivity, and last but not the least is the knowledge connectivity, which is required to be provided to make every village a knowledge center. Now I said we need to aim at reforming and starting our reforms at the village centric, and we need to do it at the village level. And what should be the plan which is required to be put in place to convert these villages into a knowledge center? Who are they? What are the requirements of the village? What exactly do you mean by food security or water security, livelihood security? These aspects need to be understood first and then addressed. There is a number of initiatives which the government is taking, and the 11th plan takes these initiatives which have been put in place much faster and forward. And I have just given a few of them here, basically addressing the regional imbalances issue and trying to make sure that we bridge them to the extent we can. National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, Bharat Nirman, which is specifically to address the rural infrastructure requirements. Nationwide coverage of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan to make sure that every child goes to school and has basic minimum education. Rural Health Mission, expanded integrated child development scheme, midday meal scheme to retain the children and give them nutritional values. Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. The first phase, there is a plan to take into account the 63 identified cities and convert them into high-class cities by providing all the urban amenities and infrastructures which is required. And the Backward Region Grants Fund to fill the gaps for development of backward areas. There is a special plan for Bihar, which is one of the most backward states in the country, and restructuring plan for Jammu and Kashmir and Manipur. The kind of funds which we are talking about, I've just got the figures for 2006-07. National Rural Employment Scheme, it's around 14,300 crores. And during the 11th plan, it's going to go much far bigger. And Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is around 10,000 crores. National Rural Health Mission, Jawaharlal Nehru Mission, they're all in that region. And the least one is Integrated Child Development Services, which is around 4,000 crores, which we have spent during 2006-07. And 7-8, which is the first year of the 11th plan, has bigger ambitions, and the budget is much bigger. The Bharat Nirman, which I said is a time-bound action plan for building rural infrastructure, has 6 components: rural irrigation, rural drinking water, rural roads, rural housing, rural electrification, and rural ICT connectivity. And the total fund which we are talking about is 176,000 crores spread over a period of 4 years. And most of these activities are going to take place in the PPP mode. So there is a possibility for every one of us to take part in this initiative and contribute. Now, so much of initiative is being taken. There is no scarcity of policy interventions. Funds are being provided. There is a willingness of participation both at the national and local level. But still, the benefits don't reach the targeted masses most often. Why? Probably we need to rethink in the way we are trying to implement the programs and come out with innovative delivery system and delivery mechanisms. The resource allocation as on date has been top-down in its approach in a broadcast manner, sprinkle and pray, hoping that at least some of the seeds which we have spread around will yield results. We need to innovate, and technology application needs to be put in place not only for delivery of the programs and schemes, but also to monitor them and bring an element of transparency into their application, so that the overall ambience level and the confidence level of the implementers is high, and we are sure that the intended benefits are being accrued to the people to whom they are meant for. So the solutions which we are trying to work on are to move from centralized to decentralized planning, and we need to transform village, and as I said, every village needs to be looked at as a knowledge center. For these, we want to use information and communication technologies not only for implementation and delivery, but also to monitor these programs. And it's the best suited technology, as we all know. It can address many of our programs and projects and areas of concern like health, rural productivity, education, e-governance, and others. Some of them I will try to cover and give you a glimpse of the kind of ICT solutions which we have already put in place and which we want to roll out. It's said that, in India we have got very good capabilities, and it's been a successful bet for pilot projects. But beyond beyond the pilot project stage, majority of the programs don't take off, and we're not in a position to implement the good pilots which we have put in place. I think 11th plan gives us an opportunity to put at rest this kind of an aberration and try to see that some of the successful pilots which we have put in place, we can roll them out across the country and make sure that the benefits are accrued to the end customers. Now the government has put in place a number of initiatives, especially for e-governance. There is a national e-governance action plan which has been put in place, which is aimed at being provided. The initiatives are to be put in place for over a period of 4 years, which contains 27 mission mode projects, both at the center as well as the state level, and a couple of core infrastructure projects like statewide area network SWAN and common service centers and state data centers, things like that, which are essential for any application you want to run at the state level or at the central level. And for the rural infrastructure, as I said, Bharat Nirman NER-EGP, National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, is already in place. And for education, the Department of Information Technology has already put in place two very successful programs called Vidya Vahini for schools, where 140 selected schools in 7 districts have been identified, and these solutions have been tried out and they are working very well. And the Ministry of Human Resource Development has a major initiative now going on called ICT in Schools, where the proposal is to first connect secondary and senior secondary schools and then come down to the middle schools and primary schools, and probably in the next plan, 10th, 11th plan, or by the end of 12th plan, we should have every school on the net and connected, and the content made available in the local language which is relevant to them. And to empower the citizens and make the services available to them, the DIP has already had put in place the community information centers in the northeastern states. Around 480 blocks have been selected, and each block we have provided these community information centers, which are working very well. And the same concept is now being rolled rolled out across the country in the form of common service centers, which is basically in the PPP mode. There are about 100,000 rural common service centers which have been envisaged, one for every 6 villages. Thereby, by the end of the implementation period, we hope that all the 600,000 villages in the country can have access through a common service center, which is either present in the same village or in the adjoining village. That's the concept. And for health-related initiatives, lot of telemedicine, tele-network, telehealth care centers have been established. And I'll just cover them also in the next few slides. So trying to cover the e-governance initiative, what is that we want to put in place? Most often, majority of the projects, we try to put the solutions what is available at our end, but not taking into account the requirements of the citizens or what is required for the citizens. Every one of us, either as part of the citizen or as a farmer or a medium industry or a large business house, we need to interact with government at various stages. Let us see what is it like. As an urban citizen, probably on an average in your lifetime, you may have to interact more than once with 10 departments. And as a farmer, 40 interactions with 8 departments. Similar is the case if you are a medium enterprise industry or a large business houses. And with so many interactions at various timelines, is there a possibility for us to streamline these activities? Well, one issue is that everybody feels that e-governance is the mantra, and by the time I implement my e-governance initiatives, it becomes a paperless office, or we can move into a paperless office. But if we can't move into a paperless office, at least the paper chase should become extinct. That's the first step we need to look at and try to achieve that. If paper chase is minimized or eliminated, I think we have achieved a great deal of growth and success, and paperless office is a matter of time there. With so many interactions, how is that e-governance? What kind of e-governance solutions we need to build, which will provide us a platform to address all these issues? Let us see the business life cycle of an individual. At the previous slide where I had indicated that on an average you have to interact with a number of departments. This slide captures some of the elements right from the child birth. You require a birth certificate, you need to interact with a government establishment or an agency which provides you this. And as a student, you need school admission, you need examination results, you need to get your student identification, and then when you get into an employment, you have to register yourself for an employment, and you need a vehicle registration if you are planning to own one, and then need the driver's license for that, and probably if you are going abroad, passport and visa are a must, and then if you are in your family mode, right from incorporation to liquidation, you need to go through a chain of activities. At every stage, you need to interact with the government and various departments. The implementation of e-governance initiative has its own merits. For the citizen, it gives time and effort is saved, and he can concentrate on better things to do and become more productive. And the business houses, they can increase velocity of their business. Transparency leads to higher investments. Time and effort saved, and productivity increases. And for the government, more efficient regulation, which improves the economy, efficient utilization of resources through program management, productivity increases in agriculture, healthcare, education, etc. So at the end of the day, when the game is played, each one of us stand to gain. It's a win-win situation for all of us. So what is this national e-governance plan which we are talking about, and what are its various components? And a bird's eye view, if I can capture it and give it to you. At the core, we have policies which enable us to put in place this national e-governance program. And the most important elements here are given here, which are integrated services. Like you have a gateway for making payment. It is irrespective of whether you are paying your commercial taxes or your business houses, you are paying your income or corporate taxes, whatever it is. You need a gateway. The common service centers for the citizens to access the services, EDI, and India portal, which would provide link and connect all portals of every state government, every NGO, every institute onto this national portal, which is India portal. And at the second tier, you have the department-specific programs like Central Excise Insurance, Department of Company Affairs, DCA 21, Income Tax, Passport Visa, Banking, Pensions, etc. And some of them have already been implemented and they are running successfully. And the outer core, you have the individual services which the consumer as or a citizen would like to avail of. These are all put in place. Some of the states have rolled out some of these programs or most of these programs across the state, and other state governments are in the process, and they are trying to look for partnerships, they are trying to look for solution providers who can provide these kind of services, keeping in line with the rules and regulations of the particular state. And interoperability is the key here, along with security of data and content and the network, which is the primary requirement for this kind of a network which we are trying to put in place. If you see from outside view to a government, from outside when you see, as a student you require to go through these kind of services you require to get them. Similarly, citizen, a business, and children. I've just tried to capture some of them and give the bird's eye view here. And this is the EBIS portal which we have put in place, and the solution, e-governance solution which has been put in place. So presently what is happening is that the approach is department centric. The customer has to come and he has to go from one department to the other department to get the services. It is not integrated and it is not available at one particular place. So at the end of the day, maybe you take 2, 3, 4 days to complete your one activity by visiting more than one department. But how is that we are trying to transform this into a citizen-centric approach? He just has to come to one particular spot, which is called the EBIS interface, and he gives whatever are his requirements. It is this interface which interacts back-end with all the departments which have to be interacted with, and collect the information and give it back to the customer or the entities. So at the end of the day, the person has to come once and log in his request at one particular spot, and the operations take place behind him and back up, and things are done and the services are provided back to him. And the kind of services which are provided both at the center and state level, I've just listed them. You can imagine the kind of time which he was spending earlier, and now it's much simpler, much easier, and the data is captured and it is transaction specific. Every transaction is captured, and at the end of the day, the government also has the figures and facts with them. Now there is another major initiative which the government has put in place, which is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, wherein 100 days of work is ensured to every one member of every rural family household. How can ICT help us in implement this particular initiative, which is faster as well as transparent? so that we know that there is no pilferage of funds at any point, and the benefits are accruing to the people who are for whom it is meant for. So here, it's the Gram Panchayat which is the starting point, which is in form of a taluk or a block or whatever we call it. The work schemes are emanating at the Gram Panchayat. I said, village specific plan. The villagers have to come out and say that this is what they want. They want a road from here to there. So that is converted into a work scheme, and that work scheme emanates from the village or the Gram Panchayat. That is sent to the district headquarters. A schedule is made as per the existing norms, and it is fed into the system. And to complete this particular work, how many man-days are required? Who are all the people available in that particular village who need to be provided with the employment? So a job seeker registration is done, and everybody who is entitled for this kind of an employment is captured, and it is available, and it is sent to the district headquarters. And then the worker's profile is created, and it is available on your server. Worker registration is done, and it is sent back, and an identity is issued. To begin with, probably we can start with a barcoded worker's identity, and ultimately it is proposed that you should have an RFID kind of a thing, so that the attendance and all other related issues are automatically tagged. Nobody needs to. The man-made interference, we are trying to see how we can minimize or eliminate the interference level. An independent agency does the measurement, how many days he works, how many hours a day he has worked, and then the salary and other things are calculated, and it is sent to the district headquarters. Attendance is marked by gadgets, totally independent of human, and the district headquarters then computes the salary which is required to be paid to this particular individual, and it is directly credited to the post office. And through post office, the individual, since he is already logged in and you already have his details, his full address and everything, the post office then sends the money directly to the person or the beneficiary on a weekly basis, and the data is updated, and it is fed to the national data, so that at the end of the day, monthly statements can be generated to identify whether the fund which is released has been spent, if so, where, how much. All these data can be captured, and you have an MIS in place, which is web driven for the management people to look into it and take appropriate steps to do any mid-course correction if it is required. But there are still constraints. One of the major challenges which we face is the digital divide. What is the issue and what are the challenges? Now, our constraints for spreading ICT are the following. Price barrier is one, energy barrier, connectivity, literacy barrier, and finally the awareness. Now, each one of us have to make sure that each one of these barriers is covered. Then only we will be able to proliferate the ICT technologies into the rural areas, and whatever initiatives, whatever programs we want to put in place and implement them, we will be able to do it. These are some of the initiatives which have already been put in place, and the first one is the price barrier. There are a lot of initiatives which we have already done where the computer costs have come down to 10,000 rupees or less than that, and Computer has been one of the first major initiatives in the country. And there are a lot of non-conventional energy sources being worked out and looked at to provide the power in the rural areas. Last mile connectivity, wireless Wi-Fi technologies are being done, and the Department of Telecommunication has a major program as part of their universal service obligation to provide not only voice connectivity to every village, the Bharat Nirman component, rural ICT connectivity, they are taking up a project where every village is provided with at least one telephone so that voice connectivity is established. And there's another program of telecom department to provide passive infrastructure which is required to roll out broadband connectivity into the rural areas. This passive infrastructure, the towers and along with the battery power backup and other things are provided under the USO fund, and the service providers are encouraged to come and use this passive infrastructure and put their transmitters and start providing the services to the area region where they would like to do this. These small initiatives of the government, we hope that it will have a far-reaching effect, and we'll be in a position to roll out the ICT infrastructure faster. And there is also a talk of providing a backbone which is having at least 1 gigabit of bandwidth, and around 5,000 universities, colleges, institutions, R&D establishments in the first phase would be put onto this net, so that they all can be interconnected and the knowledge can be shared amongst them. And Planning Commission has implemented, in fact, RDGen is implementing these 2 projects. One is for spatial data infrastructure for multi-layered geographical information system covering both rural and urban. The intention of this program is that we have the requisite data available on an GIS platform, which would help us in putting in place a location-specific plan, which will again gel with the village plans. What is available at the village level is captured and it is put here. And for the policy makers, this is available on a GIS platform, so that they can regionally as well as locally they can go in and try to identify what kind of interventions are required, and funds can be allocated accordingly. The second one is not on a all India scale. That's on a computer-aided digital mapping project which we have initiated for 6 mega cities. Delhi has already been done. The other 6 which we have identified and work is in progress is Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata and Mumbai. This is to renovate and renewal of urban mission. This would be the first phase, and the second phase, as I said earlier, that the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, where 63 cities have been identified to be taken into account during the first phase, would be done after the 6 cities have been completed, and this project would then be rolled out. What we are doing is the city is being digitally photographed, aerial photograph, and then converted into a digital map on a 1:1000 scale. And the amenities are being mapped onto this particular digital map which is available. So that this digital map at the end of the day becomes a useful tool for all those departments which are responsible for maintaining and providing those amenities within the city for their repairs, maintenance, as well as upgradation or expansion of their programs. Because these cities are growing at such a pace that it's become difficult for the agencies to work with the established methodologies, and try to come up with the solutions. The objective of the first project which we have taken is to build a framework to evolve a self-sustaining system of continuous development of GIS application in the area of resources as well as infrastructure for planning, disaster management, social, soil and water conservation. And a 23-layer GIS system is already put in place, and it is available in G2G domain as on date. It's done and it's available and linked to the 2001 census data. And this is for the second project. The Community Information Center, which I have spoken a little earlier, where we have provided the facilities in the 483 blocks in the northeastern states is basically on a VSAT network, and every CIC has a server with 5 computers where the local people can visit the CIC and get the information which they want. And there is also an entertainment channel made available to them through the network, so that in the evenings the same village people can come and gather near the CIC and go through the evening programs, and this gives them an opportunity to mingle and meet all of them on a single platform. This is the infrastructure which we have put in, and the kind of services which the CIS is presently providing are listed here. And on an average, about 20 to 100 visitors a week, because these northeastern states and these villages and the block headquarters are so thinly populated. Even this for people like us living in urban areas, 20 to 100 participants a week may be a too small a figure, but given the reason that there are about 200 people living in a village, this kind of a figure is very good to start with. And on the telemedicine area, the space Department of Space has put in a telemedicine facility via satellite, and it has both the possibilities of reaching the remote inaccessible locations as well as through the existing established hospitals to take care of both your diagnostic as well as the other medical related requirements, and it is linked right from your village level, district level hospital to the super specialty hospitals in the state capital or at the national level. So at the patient end as well as at the doctor end, the facilities have been established for a point-to-point kind of a contact, and multi-point to multi-point also it is being established and it is working. Department of Space, ISRO, has put this solution in place and it's working. And the Vidyavahini, which I have spoken a little earlier, has the kind of configuration. These are some of the initiatives which the government is taking up, and in the 11th plan there is a massive program to roll out most of these initiatives and take them forward. And each one of us have a role to play to make sure that these services can be rolled out and make India a bigger and greater country. Thank you.